We're at the Business Today Tech Today Congress here in Bengaluru, and I'm joined by Mr. Siddharth Pai, founder 314 Capital. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
I'm going to start by asking, you recently had a fundraise. Would you like to take us through the details of it? What are the plans, especially at a time when we're going through such a big crunch in the ecosystem? How do you foresee the crunch, as well as where would you like to invest further?
So happy to. So I think we've actually, this was actually been our shortest fundraise till date. We actually managed to close the entire thing in about 2.5 months, for that matter, which I think is a record given the situation there is. We're very privileged to work with a select group of LPs. A number of our previous investors have decided to continue with us. A number of new investors who've always been on the sidelines for India actually decided to use us as a sort of entry vehicle into India and to understand the wider India market itself. I think the market sentiment on India is actually an all-time high right now, even though the rest. India is actually, I think, the country that's least likely to go into a recession anytime soon as well. And given the strong investment we've done into digital infrastructure and the fact that the per capita incomes now actually crossed $2,000, so we move from sustenance to consumption, we have very strong guardrails which Indian startups can actually use to actually end up leapfrogging a number of other countries in terms of legacy systems that they have. And the innovation that we've seen through your UPI, your ONDC, your OCEN and the like, and the strong financial infrastructure that's been created will ensure that digital transactions will have actually become the norm. I think about 76% of India's GDP actually goes to digital transactions itself. Or digital transactions are 76% of India's GDP, which is the highest across the world. So digital natives are now actually become regnant all over the country. And we haven't seen any other country across the entire world make that transition this quickly. I think from about 2016, where we started getting the advent of 4G, very affordable 4G, affordable devices, as well as a large number of startups who spent immense amount of money to help people understand what it takes to actually transact online. So I think these are factors that are unique only to India, and the India opportunity is the way to actually end up growing going forward. And from our investment perspective also, we're extremely bullish in the Indian consumption case, and the Indian software story is something that will actually end up actually growing very strong. I think the other part we're looking at right now very closely is actually healthcare. So digital health, not just like having your teleconferencing or anything like that for that matter, but being able to provide a large amount of the interfaces you would in a primary healthcare center through your phone, and thereby disintermediate and reduce the amount of stress on primary healthcare infrastructure will actually hold India in very good stead. And the insurance penetration, that's a function of that, and just building around that to make sure we have a more vibrant country is a thesis that we're actually very bullish on.
Sure. Would the recent fundraise sort of affect your average ticket size?
So we've actually maintained, despite having a large amount of investor interest, we've actually kept the fund size the same as the previous fund that we launched in 2020. So we have kept it about $200 million itself, for that matter. We believe that discipline is actually key. We don't want to end up overinflating valuation, end up paying a lot more than what is actually a fair price for the assets that are itself. So we do continue to invest within anywhere between $100,000 to about $5 million in terms of initial ticket, and we don't mind actually increasing it over time. And we're fairly flexible. We realize that India is a country where you can't afford to have formulas when it comes to investing. You need to be flexible and actually adopt to what the market has. You can't force the market to adopt to what your biases are.
So, what is your current reading of the market?
So I think this is a buyer's market, I think, hands down. We've seen the highest amount of dry powder that's actually waiting on the winds to actually invest into India. So I think given that there is a large amount of, I would say, hesitation to end up actually investing, I think that the people who actually go out and find quality assets in the market right now can actually get them at very affordable prices. And when the market turns, which hopefully should happen towards the latter half of this year or sometime early next year, despite the election and everything, we do believe that the large amount of funding is actually going to come in. And the companies who are going to get invested in now are actually best poised to end up actually taking advantage of that and actually becoming champions by themselves.
314 Capital has emerged as a fund, as a very prominent investor in many startups that we've seen recently become unicorn, or even if they're not unicorn, popular names we've seen emerge. Any favorite choices of yours?
That's actually a very tough question, depending on the day. But I think there is one company that we're actually very, very fond of. It's a company called the Cuckoo.fm. They actually have about 3 million paying subscribers right now, which is about 75% of Netflix's entire base. The beauty of Cuckoo.fm is the fact that it's an audio podcasting platform that actually goes in regional languages. And the kind of data we're seeing emerge from that is enormous. We've seen, everyone says Indians actually are very frivolous with their time. They just want to watch videos, stay on WhatsApp, etc. But the the content that actually sees the largest amount of listens on their platform is actually self-improvement. It's actually to help improve your English, how to actually become financially sustainable, self-sufficient, how to actually improve your finances and the like. So there is a large amount of self-improvement that Cuckoo is actually enabling for India itself. And Cuckoo can actually prove out that even with a small ticket size, it is possible to actually create a profitable entity, and Indians do actually end up paying when they do see value. So I think the mindset shift needs to happen for Indian entrepreneurs is don't just copy what actually worked in the West. Understand your audience a lot better. Understand for what will they actually end up paying for, and actually build to that. Don't build and expect your audience to come. Understand your audience a lot better and actually build and curate it to them. So I think that's one fantastic insight we've actually got from the Cuckoo team, and that's a company we're still very bullish on. Amongst a whole host of others, I think I can actually go on about a good chunk of the portfolio also, but this is one company we're very bullish on as of now.
Sure. In one of the recent issues of Business Today magazine, we've spoken about AI. And the pertinent question that has emerged over the few couple of months is, would AI in its current situation be a friend or a foe? What's your take on that?
I think the entire debate around AI is similar to the debate around the internet. I think in the early 2000s, it is at the end of the day a tool, and every tool depends on how you actually end up using it. We will of course see people exploit AI to actually start creating deep fakes, to start creating fake news, and a whole bunch of other stuff for that matter. But I think the biggest thing that can actually arrest the growth of negative AI is actually positive AI itself. For every chat GPT that can actually regurgitate an entire answer sheet, there are actually AIs now that can end up tracking whether this was created by chat GPT or not itself. So I think it's an arms race for that matter. I do believe that our current set of regulations, not just in India but across the entire world, fail to take into account the enormity of AI and have actually failed to actually create guardrails around that itself. So I think that's an evolving conversation point, and our laws are going to fashion the use of AI and prevent the misuse of AI to a large extent. We can't suppress AI. I think some of the colleges, educational institutions, countries who've tried to ban AI outright are actually putting themselves at a much lower footing compared to other peers. I think it's important to embrace it, but make sure there are proper guardrails that are created around it.
Sure. Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.